This episode is brought to you by Google Gemini. With the Gemini app, you can talk live and have a real-time conversation with an AI assistant. It's great for all kinds of things, like if you want to practice for an upcoming interview, ask for advice on things to do in a new city, or brainstorm creative ideas. And by the way, this script was actually read by Gemini. Download the Gemini app for iOS and Android today. Must be 18 plus to use Gemini Live.
Welcome to Women's Running Stories, where exceptional women runners share inspirational stories about their running experiences. Hello, my name is Cherie Louise Turner. I'm the host and producer of this podcast. Thank you so much for being here. If you are new to the podcast, welcome. And if you have been here before, thank you so much for coming back. This is a special end-of-year episode. It's an opportunity for some reflection. And in that spirit, I chose 10 clips to play for you from episodes published in 2024. And I chose them because, they represent so many ways that running can impact our lives. I found them to be a good variety of experiences that women have shared throughout the year. By no means does this cover all the topics that were covered this year. There are way too many to fit into one episode. But this was just a nice collection of just many of the ways that running can touch our lives. Before we get rolling with the clips, I did want to give you a couple of updates. One is that Women's Running Stories now has a newsletter. It's through Substack. I'll put a link in the show notes to how you can find it, or you can just go to Substack and search for Women's Running Stories and you will find it there. It's a weekly newsletter. It contains information about what's new on the podcast, some behind-the-scenes information, some updates on my own running and training, including what's new in the over 50 sub 25K project. And I will also share resources from other women, be it podcasts or articles or books, resources created by women for women in the running space. And I'm sure I'll throw in a few more things as time goes on here. So please subscribe. Again, that newsletter will be coming out weekly and it will be dropping on Thursdays. So yeah, thanks in advance for becoming a subscriber. I also have a website redesign in the works. I have been working with April Mariner from Bonfire Collaborative. April has been with the podcast since the beginning. She created the logo and the current website. And we thought that the website just needed a bit of a refresh. So that will be happening in the next few weeks. And other than that, I plan to continue to bring weekly episodes of stories from women who have incredible running experiences to share. My focus will continue to be on the huge variety of women who make up this community and the huge variety of running pursuits they take on. So let's get to these clips. This first set of clips are all about the transformative power of running. This is something that comes up often in women's running stories, just how life-changing this sport can be. So first up, you're going to hear from Katie Holmes. Katie is a UK-based runner who found running later in life. She started running in her 40s. And since she started running, Katie has raced just about every type of running race you could find. Cross-country, trail, road, track. She's done them all. She's also become a women's running historian, and she is the creator of the popular running blog Run Young 50. After Katie, you will hear from Sister Liz Sjoberg. And Sister Liz serves the Brownsville, Texas community. Specifically, she works for the organization Proyecto Juan Diego. And this organization provides resources and guidance to the local community. And one of the things that Sister Liz brings to that community is running. She is a runner herself, and at the beginning of 2024, she helped put on the very first 5K and 1 mile fun run walk for Proyecto Juan Diego. After Sister Liz, you're going to hear from Alison Mariella Désir. Alison is an activist, a speaker, a community builder, a TV host, and she is the author of the groundbreaking book Running While Black. Alison has been on the podcast before, and she came back this year to talk about summiting Mount Kilimanjaro and the new passion she has discovered for hiking and climbing mountains. So those are the first 3 clips around the transformative power of running. First up, Katie Holmes, followed by Sister Liz Sjoberg, and then Alison Mariella Désir. Here's Katie to kick things off.
I feel like running is really quite empowering, because it gives you that opportunity to do things you maybe never thought you would do. You get that sense of your strength and your endurance. You build a community, you become part of a community, you make new friendships. And also, I think for me that it's been a sort of reinvention in some ways, in that it gives you a different identity, in that, you know, I started off running like a lot of people. I didn't really think I was a runner. Then I started to think of myself as a runner. And then I started to compete on the track. And, you know, and then I started to think of myself as an athlete, not just a runner, an athlete. And I think these things are important, because they're kind of giving you a confidence, not just in your running life, but, you know, in other situations as well.
And now let's hear from Sister Liz.
I don't think I really liked running until maybe 2 or 3 years in of actually trying to run. And I wouldn't even call myself a runner at that point at all, but just somebody trying to get their life right and trying to have some balance. And it really started to open up a new world for me. In one way, you do it so that you're a healthy and happy and whole person. But we're not supposed to be healthy, happy, and whole people just for ourselves. We do it because it strengthens us to be that for others, and to show them that there is something greater, and that there can be meaning even in difficulty. And I think that's part of the metaphor of running as a metaphor of life, that we don't grow by just having everything easy. We grow because we push ourselves. We grow because we face challenges. And when we're sweating and huffing and puffing around on a run, we are actually training our body to respond to difficulty and grow in it. That's literally what our muscles are doing, and our heart is doing in that. And I do think that is a perfect metaphor for how to approach life.
And next up is Alison, Mariella, Désir.
I'm hoping to climb, there's this hike called Mailbox Peak, and like a few others this summer. I plan to hike not with the same kind of intensity that I did in training for Kilimanjaro, but it's like, it seems so normal and casual now, that whereas before it was like, oh my gosh, I'm solo hiking and I'm doing this thing. And that doesn't mean that it's taken away any of like the excitement around it. It's just, you know, anything can become normal. And it's like, the more you do the thing, or the more you're around the thing, and that's both good and bad, right? Like the same way that like white supremacy has been normalized, but anything that was once foreign or new can become, you know, what is expected, and what what doesn't shock you anymore. And that to me is hiking, and also being around people who do things like this, and following people on social media and learning from them. I suspect that there's going to be a lot more like quote unquote outdoor things in my life than necessarily running things in the future.
Now we're going to go from how running can be transformative to how running can help us process difficulties in life. And in this specific clip, it is about processing grief. This came up in the episode featuring ultra-distance trail runner Emily Halnon. She had an epic adventure going after a fastest known time, or FKT, on the part of the Pacific Coast Trail that goes through Oregon, and that is 460 miles. So she tells that story and how it is intertwined with the way she processed the grief she experienced after the death of her mother. Let's hear from Emily.
When I think back at when I made the decision to do this run to celebrate my mom, there really wasn't a lot of thought that went into it. It really just felt like this obvious thing that I should do. And when I look back at it, I appreciate that it is how I have felt closest to my mom. When I and not just through the run, but when I live and do things in this like bold, brave, wholehearted way that she did, that is how I feel closest to my mom. That is where I like feel the richest version of my love for her. And so I don't think it was, and maybe that's what surprised me, or that's what I appreciate most after making the decision, is that wasn't necessarily, I didn't know that was why I was doing it, but that has become very obvious to me. And especially now it's been about 4 years and a little bit since I lost my mom, that is how I stay closest to her, and that is absolutely the best thing that I could have done in the months after losing her, was have that outlet, that way to stay connected and to feel like I had a place to be putting my love for her. And the run gave me that.
So running can be a place that helps us process the challenges of life. And then there is the flip side, that sometimes the challenge that we have in our life is the fact that we can't run, and we have to deal with that. And here I am talking about injuries. They are common. They are no fun. They are always a challenge, and that makes injuries a big topic of conversation in the running world. So I pulled a couple of clips that speak to injury and overcoming it. The first clip is from Rebecca Mira. Rebecca is a longtime professional runner. She specializes in the middle distances on the track, the 800 and the 1500, and she races for Brooks Beasts. After Rebecca, you will hear from professional runner Rachel MacArthur. Rachel is also a track racer, and her focus is the 1500. Both these runners have had quite a bit of experience with overcoming injuries, so let's hear from them. First up is Rebecca, followed by Rachel.
I feel like I'm in a really good spot, and mentally I'm in a really good spot. I mean, in the last couple of years, I thought a lot about stopping. I thought, I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. I feel like I'm kind of torturing myself just thinking that I can get back, and I'm not going to be the same athlete that I once was. And one of my old teammates on Little Wing Squad said that, and this stuck with me, that thank you, Carrie Mack, that comparison is the thief of joy. And I think even comparison to yourself and a past self can also be the thief of joy. So I'm trying not to think about what Rebecca in 2021 did and think about what Rebecca in 2024 is capable of. And that feels exciting.
And now let's hear from Rachel MacArthur.
It was years of, discomfort, and then in denial about everything. And then also thinking there's no way this doesn't hurt one day. It was really, really painful. I couldn't go a single second without discomfort, even just sitting, standing, whatever. So the idea of like no pain whatsoever, if you just do this and take 6 months off, was kind of unfathomable to me. I just didn't think that was ever going to happen. But I had a really good support system, like my family, my boyfriend, my friends, my coaches, and they guaranteed like, you're going to be fine. You need to just get healthy. And so I trusted that, and they were right. So I'm really glad I did it.
Yeah, so injuries are no fun, but they can teach us resilience, and you never know what's on the other side. Now, another topic that comes up a lot when we talk about running is confidence. And it can be a bit of a double-edged sword in the running world, because on one side, running can build confidence, and I hear that a lot. On the other side, it can really challenge our confidence. And these clips kind of touch on both sides. The first clip you're going to hear is from Canadian ultra trail runner Anita Cardinal. In addition to being a runner, Anita is a community builder, and she's also a race director. And in particular, she is a First Nations or Indigenous woman, and she focuses on that community up in the Edmonton area of Canada. The second person you're going to hear from is Misha Powell. She is also Canadian. Misha specializes in the 400 meter, and she is also an Olympian. Her story on the podcast revolved around the publication of her book, Sprinting Through Setbacks, and she talked about pivotal moments in her running career. And a lot of that had to do with confidence, both when it wavers and building it back. So let's hear from these women. First up is Anita, followed by Misha.
Why, right? I think it's like, I wanted to see how far I could push myself. I wanted to see what I could do. And I think sometimes you question like yourself and you get down on yourself and I wanted to know what I was capable of.
And next up, Misha Powell.
The fact that I'm telling myself, you can throw it down. You've done this before. Having those proofs to essentially back all of your efforts when you go into a scary situation or hurdle and you tell yourself, I've done this and I can do it again. And I can bring it. So it's almost like you have ammunition to fight against your those voices that telling you maybe you can't and maybe you shouldn't, or even when you might be on social media and you're comparing yourself, and then these assumptions start to come up of this person's so much faster and this person's doing this better than me, and like who said that? Everybody has their own journey, and I think that when you go back to what I've done when the pressure was on, or when it didn't seem like the odds were stacked in my favor and I pushed through, that is my favorite thing to rely on. And I think that that's what's definitely gotten me through those intense seasons of imposter syndrome where I'm wondering if it's even worth continuing in the sport. And I have to have these really good talks, and I write in my journal and I just write down what I have accomplished, because I think it's so important to actually look back at what you've done and to see how you show up on the line and how you commit to seeing it through is so key to actually fulfilling your potential.
All right. Now we're going to move on to a clip that focuses on the glory of achieving the big goal. This clip features longtime elite steeplechaser Carmen Graves and focuses on her going after the Olympic trials standard to qualify to run at the Olympic trials in 2021. Here is Carmen.
So it's the last lap of the race, and I'm like, okay, like just get to the line. And I lost focus and I stepped wrong on that water pit barrier and totally submerged myself underwater. But you know what? I got right back up and I just went for it as hard as I could, because I just felt like I worked so hard for this moment and I wasn't going to let that get in the way of me qualifying. And so that was so special for me. And that was when I realized, hey, I'm back.
I love that story. Of course, it's always great to hear about people achieving their dreams, especially in such dramatic fashion. A little update about Carmen. Carmen also raced in the 2024 Olympic trials, once again competing in the 3,000 meter steeplechase. And at 33 years old, she was the oldest racer in the field. After the Olympic trials this year, she decided to move on from the steeplechase, and she will be pursuing other racing goals going forward. And I'm really looking forward to following what she does next. Now, the very last clip I have is from an episode that I hold dear to my heart, and that is from Nasima Palmer. If you haven't listened to Nasima's episode, please do so. It is really, really good. This clip doesn't need much setup. For me, it just kind of gets to the heart of it all. Here is Nasima Palmer.
Running reminds me that I'm living. Running reminds me that I'm living, that I'm alive. And that's important for somebody who didn't want to be.
Yeah, getting out, running, breathing hard, feeling your body move through space. It reminds us that we're alive. And I will leave you with that. Thank you once again so much for being here. I really appreciate it. That is going to be a wrap for me. I am Cherie Louise Turner, the host and producer of Women's Running Stories. And until next Tuesday, I do wish you healthy, joyful strides forward.
Hear Her Sports is a podcast for everyone who loves stories by and about women striving to improve and make a difference in their lives. I am your host, Elizabeth Emery, a former professional cyclist. In every episode, I introduce a female athlete or woman in the business of sport through a thoughtful conversation about who they are and the terrific work they're doing. My guests and I explore the glorious and frustrating issues in sports, history, equity, training, nutrition, and so much more. Join us for inspiration, for community, and for love of being a strong, athletic woman.